The last video I posted on YouTube was probably about 20 years ago, and I was playing with a camera from the MacBook that my now ex-wife had purchased for me. And I don't know, it just never felt like it was the right thing to do then. And heck, I even I did a podcast. I've done a few podcasts, honestly. I currently am doing I'm actually currently doing 3 podcasts, as it is. One of them for work and 2 of them on a personal level. But a lot of things have changed in my life since the last time I did video, and I feel like now's the time to do to maybe do a little bit of video, and mainly because I have something to say finally, and it's it's speaking from the heart, and honestly, yeah, the amount of growth I've personally gone through in the last 20 years, it's pretty amazing. But I think what I'll address on this one is the idea of forgiveness, because and partially because I've got I don't really have any regrets. It's funny. I read a letter from my dad once, and he said he didn't he doesn't have any regrets either, and I don't have any regrets. About 4 years ago, I made a decision in my life that I decided that I needed to, I needed to leave the house and home that I created, because it wasn't what I wanted, and it didn't seem like it was getting any better. And unfortunately, my kids, they didn't even ask my opinion. They just took her side, and in fact, my son even kind of helped get information out of me to give to her. So, but here's the thing, right? I understand why they did what they did. I'm not angry about it. I'm not even angry with her at this point for all the shit she did, right? Look, and honestly, all of that stuff made me the person I am. All of the difficulties, all of the challenges, and I've went through a lot of them, and some of which I've talked about, some of which I haven't talked about, and honestly, and if I'm going to be angry about that, why would I be angry about it? I'm having the best time of my life right now. I am healthy, happy, full of love and abundance. What more could I want, right? And holding on to this kind of stuff is not so great. There's no reason to. It doesn't serve a purpose. So, I've released it and let it go. And even anybody who's done anything wrong to me, I release it and let it go, because whether you know it or not, it all made me to the person I am. And I'm honestly, I'm pretty happy with who I am right now. And I'm pretty happy with where things are at. And I'm just, and I'm just over all of this stuff. And look, like I said, my kids, I understand why they did what they did, and I don't necessarily hold it against them. But, like I said, I don't, and I even, it's like I honor my daughter every time I get on the stream. I say goodnight, Gracie. Which is kind of funny because, it's Burns and Allen, right? that's how she got the name. So just seemed kind of fitting when I'm done with a live broadcast. That's what I say. So, yeah, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt every now and again, but that's okay, right? It's part of the process. It's part of moving on. It's, you can't, even you can forgive, but don't forget, right? Because look, and that's the one thing I can say about forgiving is, it's not just letting bygones be bygones, but don't let the kind of behavior that you had a problem with come back in, right? So, I've learned what I'm worth. I've learned that, the people that actually want me around tend to act like they want me around, and and that's just that, right? And whatever happened, I'm not, like I said, I'm just not allowing that behavior in anymore. So it doesn't, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not upset about it. I'm not angry about it. It's just what and that's the point I've reached in my life is, look, you can't, I'm just not, don't hold on to stuff, right? Don't hold on to the past, because you can't change it, right? No reason for you to hold on to the past. It made me who I am. I had to struggle, and that's how you learn, right? You actually have to struggle in order to learn, right? And because you're not just going to be given the information. Sometimes you got to struggle with it and figure out how to apply it. And sometimes you might have to do things a little bit differently than the way that they taught. And that's okay, right? It's actually okay to struggle. It's actually okay to do these things. And And seriously, I just I'm over it, right? So I think that's my advice to anybody at this point is, look, whatever happened in the past, it's in the past. You can't change it, and don't try to. And it got you to where you're at, and where you're at's pretty good, right? And you can't change any of it anyway, so you might as well be okay with it. And all you can do is move forward from where you're at, and you know learn what you're going to put up with and what you're not going to put up with, right? And that's the important part of forgiveness, is not only the act of forgiving, but making sure that it doesn't come back in your life, that whatever it is. And yeah, sometimes that means people in your life aren't in your life anymore, right? Because they can't seem to I went through this with my mother, right? The reason, the reason didn't have much of a relationship with my mother in the latter part of my life is because she was an alcoholic. And I just said, I've had enough of this, right? And I can't, this is one of those things you got to, sometimes it's, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you help others, right? And, I didn't think at the time I was going to, I was going to be able to do what I needed to do if I was constantly worried about my mom and her calling me and exhibiting the behavior that she did when she's drunk. And it's just not, it's a great example of things like that, right? And sometimes, that doesn't mean I don't love my mother. I mean, she passed away, some time ago at this point, but that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean I don't love it, but it does mean, I'm not going to put up with that. And so, the best thing I can say is love yourself the most, right? Because nobody else is going to do it, right? And that means doing things for yourself, right? That means taking time. Like I'm sitting out here and next to a stream because I needed to come get some time in nature because a lot of people, and thankfully I where I live it's honestly it's gorgeous. If I can get away from the people at times, but yeah, you just find that find your peace. Find what makes you happy and do some of that. I mean, honestly, like this is what I've been trying to do is I've been struggling with all this. I've been trying to figure it out. And I think I figured some things out, right? And it's not, and honestly, it comes from lots of sources. It's, it's I've done a lot of reading of a lot of different things. And I've also done some introspection, and I've looked at my own life and see what kind of makes sense. And I don't know that there's any other way to describe this. I mean, I could sit down and write it, and I probably will. I mean, I do that anyway for the shows, but look, I think, but yeah, we all need to forgive each other. And not just the family members that wronged us, but anybody else that might wrong you at any point in the day, right? Why did they, a lot of times it's the reason that they injured you was trauma, and the same reason you injured anybody else is your own trauma, right? Because of something that happened in your past that caused you that you reacted out of fear or something. Sometimes the situation comes up and it's just like, it's the same thing, right? It's the same fear. It's something that's very similar, but why hold on to that, right? It served you well, but you're smarter than that now. You're better than that, and you don't, and you're stronger than that. And so, there's you don't need to have those responses anymore. Let them go. I mean, seriously, I'm not, I've been honestly, I probably should have sat down and thought about this a little bit more before I sat down and did it. But I figured I'd do it off the cuff. I do it from the heart. That way, I'm not rehearsing or anything, right? This is, I really wish. There's so much hate in the world. I mean, I've been watching all of the fighting and everything, and every, all different walks of life, and every, the war in the Middle East and Ukraine and whatever else is going on. I don't really pay a lot of attention to what's going on out there because, quite frankly, I found out that, keeping an eye on the news, or spending too much time watching the news made me unhappy. So I just decided to stop doing it. I don't need to be, who says I have to be informed of everything that's going on in the world? Well, I pay attention to the stuff that might impact me, but, I just know what I can do about it, which is not really a whole lot. But what I can do, and what I am doing, is I'm saying no to things that I don't want to say yes to, right? I'm being honest with myself and going, I don't want to say, I don't really like doing that. So why am I doing that, right? But as I'm learning more about this stuff, I'm probably gonna, who knows, I might turn it into a podcast, turn it on its own podcast. I mean, we explore some of the stuff on the Lotus Effect Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Anyway. I can't help but plug my own show at times. But anyway, but honestly, like, I'm just tired of not saying what needs to be said. Everybody's so uptight about what other people think. I don't care anymore. I've stopped caring. It's like, look, you either love me or hate me, and that's okay, right? Your opinion of me doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? It says your opinion of me says more about you than it does me. So, if you don't like this, I don't really care. If you like it and you want me to say more things, or I don't know, maybe, yeah, hey, I might do this some more. I've been kind of noodling on doing something different, and I don't know. It feels like now it feels like the time to do something on YouTube. And I don't really have like I said, I don't really have a plan for this yet, other than as I learn, as I learn these things of wisdom, yeah, maybe I'll put them on YouTube. But like I said, it's just I haven't, it's truly, this is just me unfiltered, sitting in front of a camera, in front of I'm sitting on a rock in front of a stream. I wish I could take a picture of this, while I was taking the video. Maybe I'll just swip it around here a little bit, and you can kind of get a sense for what it is. But but this is, yeah. And that's, I'm hoping that there's people out there that are kind of looking around and going, this shit's fucked, right? Everything is, everything is not, this isn't the world we wanted. This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife, as the talking heads say. Yeah. And so, I'm doing things that make me happy. I'm doing things that bring me joy. And I'm trying to, make the world a better place, and I can't go out and change the world in one fell swoop. I'm not going to be able to do that. But what I can do, and what I will do, is I'll shine my light where I can. I'll say, hey, look, this might be a different way to look at the world that helps you break out of the matrix, helps you, see things a little differently. Maybe instead of living in fear, you can live in, be joyous and happy, and be healthy, happy, full of love and abundance, right? And yeah, I can be healthy, happy, full of love and abundance, and look around and go, yeah, well, I'd like the rest of the world to be the same way. And I know that there's so many things that need to be, that are just kind of wrong, that we could argue with. I mean, go listen to the network speech where, Peter Finch goes, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You listen to everything he describes. If in 1976, friends, it's still the same, all that shit's still there and then some. We've now just added more technology to it. So, yeah, we should all be mad as hell and not take it anymore. And the best thing, the only thing we can do, right, with even if there's, everything going on, say no, right? Say no to something that doesn't make you feel good, right? And I'm not, and I think I also have come up with the idea, with great joy comes great responsibility, meaning, yeah, do the things that make you happy, but be responsible about it, and don't do it in such a way that's going to detriment you or somebody else, right? But and maybe you make time for it, but do it, right? Do the things that make you happy, because it seems like all the joy has been taken out of the world, and you know what? It's time to take it back, folks. You don't like the state of the world, do something about it. That's all I can say, right? Do something about it, and say no, right? And that's all you can do, right? Maybe that's that's going to be one, that's going to be its own thing, right? That it's going to create some difficulty. But you know what? Enough of us say no, and you start saying no, and then your friends start, talk to your friends about it. They start saying no. Maybe some stuff changes, right? It's kind of like the old, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so on and so on. Yes, I've watched a lot of television growing up, so that and I love to listen to music. That's something. Yeah, I do a lot more now, and I get stuff on vinyl too. It's the way I like to do things. All right. Anyway, I think I've rambled enough. I'll eventually post this. I'm, where I'm sitting right now, uploading this anywhere is, well, I need to get back to civilization. But, yeah, I guess I don't know what to call this. I'm just going to post this to YouTube and see what the fuck happens. I don't know. But I figured it's time to put some stuff out on YouTube, and, maybe people will like it. Maybe people won't. Maybe somebody out there will hear what I've got to say and go, yeah, maybe I need to think about things differently. That's all I'm trying to do is, say, hey, maybe there's a different way to look at things, right? And if you think about it, and that can be enough to break out of the what do you call it, the matrix, right? That we all seem to be in. It's like I describe myself as a free range human, and we should all be free range humans. because, yeah, unfortunately, all the systems that are there, yeah, they don't always have our best interest at heart. And that's all I can say. So it's time for us to maybe to take it back and like just take it back. We need to, and we got to start. You got to start somewhere. It's not, it's not going to be, the revolution. Is not going to. Somebody else isn't going to start the revolution. You've got to start it, right? We've all got to start it. We've all got to, in our own way, say no to the stuff that we don't, that isn't right. That doesn't make us feel good. And that means maybe not doing some things, and maybe spending some time by yourself in nature, or spending your time just by yourself, just breathing, right? I think it's important that, we're always so busy, reading, writing, consuming, even making content, that we don't spend time to just stop, take a breath, and look around. It's like Ferris Bueller, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and take a look around, you could miss it, right? And yeah, and like I'm sitting around looking here, and there's just so much beauty out here. This is a fall afternoon here, in my little part of eastern Tennessee here, and I can't argue. It's just beautiful out here, and and anytime you go outside, you can see something beautiful. All you got to do is just take a moment and take a breath and take a look, right? That's all you got to do. And we need to do that every now and again, and listen to that little voice inside of you. It might have something to say. It was just waiting for its chance to say something. But look, we don't. The world doesn't have to be what it is. We can change it. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but if enough of us, enough of us will start, saying something, and in their own little way, saying no to the stuff that they don't want to say yes to, really, but they're forced. They feel like they're forced to, or they have to, because everybody else does, whatever. But fortunately, I've never been the kind of person that really cares what anybody really thinks anyway. This is, but yeah, now it's really living that and embodying that. Yeah, sometimes the current world is just not, it just hasn't been conducive to that. But I think it's time, right? If we don't do it now, when are we going to do it, right? When is this going to change? Well, we can either let things get worse, or we can try to make things better. And why not try to make things better? Why not be healthier, happier, full of love and abundance? Why not? We should all do it. Anyway, this is PhoneBoy signing off. We'll see you next time.